Do you find yourself waking up feeling pain or tightness? Well, you can fix it, and it doesn't require pills or surgery. And before you say it won't work, or I'm too old, or it's just too much effort, stop it. Living your life in pain is far more difficult than working to fix it. There seems to be this idea that the further we get from our youth, the more our body falls apart. But it doesn't have to be this way. Now, I understand where you are right now. I've been there too. I've suffered injuries, severe RSI, and a little bit of birth defect thrown in just for good measure. So I've had to battle to fix my body, and I'll show you how. For many of us, this pain comes from tightness or weakness in our joints and muscles. The fix then is to increase our strength and flexibility. And this is exactly what I've done and what I've done for many of my clients. I've compiled all of my videos on this issue. So whether it's your knees, your lower back, shoulders, or something else, there is probably a fix in here for you. I've timestamped this so you can jump to the bit that's relevant for you. Or if you're unsure, you can just watch through the whole thing and have a good laugh at how far my production quality has come over the years. Now, as with all lasting injuries and pain, I do suggest you try and see a physiotherapist if you can. A good one is pretty much worth their weight in gold. And of course, do take care of these exercises and proceed with caution. Not all of them might be suitable for your condition. Finally, if you would like a more personalized approach to rebuilding your fitness and strength, please do get in touch and we can see if we're a good fit for working with each other. For now, let's dive in. By the end of this video, you'll have a program of warm-up, stretching, strengthening, and release exercises to keep your shoulders healthy and pain-free. My next video is going to be about wrist rehab, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that. Problems with shoulders and wrists are very common and often go hand in hand, whether it be postural from working at a desk or driving, or strain caused by manual work such as digging. This is my last week as an archaeologist, so I figured I'd give a little something back and help those of you who might have issues from other activities, all at the same time. Let's start with those warm-up exercises. These are going to take less than 5 minutes to complete. The aim here is to literally get the muscles in and around the shoulder warm. This increases their elasticity, reducing the potential for injury and increasing their potential to deliver force. We can start this with forward and backwards shoulder rolls and arm swings across the chest, just 10 repetitions of each. Next, alternating shoulder rolls, bringing one shoulder up and forward whilst the other goes down and back. Again, 10 reps and then 10 more reps in the reverse direction. Scapular squeezes will help your posture and strengthen those muscles in the upper back that help support the shoulder joint. Squeeze your shoulder blades together as if you're trying to crack a nut between them. Lead with those shoulder blades. Your shoulders will pull back slightly, but don't actively pull them back. Next, we'll loosen things up a little bit more with some lateral tides. Reach your arms forward as far as you can, really stretch out the upper back. Hold for a second, then open out, pushing your chest forwards. Hold, and then repeat another 4 times. Follow this with some backward arm swings. One arm comes up over the shoulder and bends, the other comes back straight. At the same time, we look down that straight arm, and then we simply relax. We repeat this motion 10 times on each side, one side at a time. Finally, we'll do 10 reps of vertical tides. The basic motion is the same, but we're reaching down towards the floor and then opening up towards the sky. Follow this warm-up with the 10 minutes of stretches coming up before you do anything that works your shoulders, or the first time each day you sit down at your desk or go for a long drive. The shoulder is affected by all of the muscles around it, so we're going to make sure that we stretch more than just that shoulder. For example, tight lats can affect overhead movements such as pressing or swinging and lead to injuries as other parts of the body try to compensate. If any of the muscles that you're stretching don't really feel tight when you're doing it, then you can skip that stretch. But throw it back in every now and then as you strengthen those muscles, just to make sure that no tightness has crept in. First, we'll do the internal rotators. Take a broom or even a shovel, place it over your arm near the bottom of your bicep. Take your arm in line with your shoulders and then pull the opposite end upwards with the other arm. For the external rotators, place the back of your wrist just above the hip, like you're pretending to be a chicken, and then pull the elbow forward with the other arm. If you feel you need more of a stretch, put your elbow on a wall and rotate your body into it instead. To stretch the lats, grab a door frame or fixed pole above shoulder height. Push your hips back and rotate your opposite shoulder inwards. Next, bend your torso towards the hand while still keeping those hips back. This will get the 2 attachment points of the lats as far away from each other as possible. From here, we can go straight into our chest stretch. Keep the hand up high, stand tall, and turn the opposite shoulder shoulder away from your hand. The closer your shoulder is to the line of the door frame and the more you twist, the more a stretch you'll get. Next, we'll stretch the muscles of the upper back using a chair or a bench. Kneel down and pop your elbows on the chair, wide enough that you can get your head through. Place your palms together, drop your head as far as you can, and then slowly extend and bend the arms, working through your range of motion. Next, reset. Try to pull your hands apart, externally rotating at the shoulder, then sink your head and hold. Finally, we have what I like to call the armpit sniff and reach. Stand tall with your back against the wall. Look down towards your armpit and pull on the back of your head with your hand. Next, lift the other arm upwards. You'll feel the stretch intensify the more you lift that arm and the more you pull down on your head. If you aren't doing these stretches at least 5 times a week around your general activity, try and find time for some dedicated stretching sessions. Next, we have some strengthening exercises, which again, you want to try and do around about 5 times a week when you can fit them in. We want to do about 20 reps for each at a low intensity. You should just feel a little bit tired from each exercise. If you start to get sore, take a day off and then come back to it a little bit lighter. First, we have internal and external band rotation. Simply anchor a band to a pole, door handle, etc. at around elbow height. Hold the band in one hand, step out to the point where there's a little bit of tension and rotate your arm inwards, keeping your elbow where it is, and then go back again, resisting the band. Once you've done 20 reps, turn around and do the other arm. Turn around again and repeat with external rotation. Again, stepping out to the point where there is tension in the band before starting. For the next exercise, you can anchor a light resistance band in front of you or hold a very light weight, say 1 kilogram. Lift your elbow to shoulder height and then rotate your hand downwards and then back up. Each works a different part of the range of motion more, and if you can only do one, I'd use a weight. But to make this even better, you can use both at once to even out the strength curve and work the full range of motion evenly. Next, we have the apple picker. Anchor a band behind you, stand up tall, reach your arm up and forwards. Really stretch out that shoulder blade. Then pull down to your side. Imagine you're reaching up to pick an apple and then putting it in a basket. For the last strength exercise, we have the face pull. Loop a band around something at head height and step back so the band is taut with your arms a little extended. Bend your arms, bringing your thumbs back towards you, and then while still bending, open out your elbows, pulling back as far as you can. Make sure your hand beats your elbow to the shoulder line. Then reverse. Finally, we have something that you can do as and when you have time, and that is to release your muscles with foam rolling. For your upper back and shoulders, use a wall or the floor and a ball. Find a tense spot and roll around it to get some release. To release your lats, lie on your side over a foam roller with your arm overhead and your bottom leg bent for some support. Roll up and down slowly until you find the point of most tension. This is the only movement that the roller is going to do. Then we're going to roll our body side to side. Go all the way to the front of the lat and then all the way around the back. Keep going until you feel some relief and then repeat with any other tight spots. That's the end of the basic shoulder relief program. But if you're really keen on bulletproofing those shoulders, you want to make sure you do some proper strength building exercises, such as scapular shrugs, straight arm push downs, horizontal rows, delt raises, rear delt rows, and some heavier face pulls. Working those delts that much, you'll probably also want to throw in some delt stretches for the front, middle and rear delts. If you can put all of this into your routine, you'll be strong through a full range of motion and stronger than you need to be for your daily activities. And therefore, you'll be resilient to injury and overuse going forwards. Today we're looking at ways to fix and prevent overuse injuries of the wrist. If you've got wrist pain from regularly using a computer, exercising or manual work, these exercises are for you. If you don't have pain but do spend a lot of time doing these activities, it's probably a good idea to invest some time in these exercises just to make sure that you don't get it, because it really isn't fun. Towards the end of my PhD, it got so bad that I could barely carry anything. So let's dive into all the things I've learned over the years to keep your wrists happy. The first thing we want to do, and something that you should really do every day before you use them, is warm your wrists up. To do this, start by rotating your wrists inwards and outwards a few times and flexing them up and down. To fully mobilize them, I like to hold each wrist to prevent too much movement of the arm, and then with a closed fist, slowly circle. Jumping into activity cold makes any muscle unhappy, so heat it up to free it up. The next thing we want to do is stretch our wrists out, because using them all day tends to tighten things up. The two most basic stretches involve you holding your palm out in front of you and with fingers pointing up, pulling back, or fingers pointing down and pulling back. Just go as far as you need to feel a good stretch in your forearms, which are where the muscles that control your wrist are. If you need a more intense stretch, you can use these on the floor or the wall using your body weight, but ease into it gently. You don't want to pull anything. Next, turn your palm to face yourself and then gently push on the back of the knuckles. If you need more of a stretch, curl your fingers into a fist. For our final stretch, stand tall, push your palms out to the side and really pull those fingers back. Keep the arms straight and really push away with the heel of the hand and pull all 10 digits back as far as you can. You should feel this all the way down your arm and into the hand. The next key element is to strengthen the muscles in the forearm that move the wrist and those in the hand, because these being too weak for your daily activities is often the cause of an overuse injury. Resistance bands are the best way to work our wrists in all 4 directions, as we don't have to worry about the alignment of our body to gravity, like we would with a weight. So sit down, place your forearm on your leg and anchor the band under your foot. You can then flex nice and slowly with palm down, thumb up and palm up. For the last one, let your fingers uncurl slightly as you get to the bottom to get that strength all the way down into the fingers. To work the final plane, loop the band over your shoulder and bend the wrist down, thumb facing upwards. Our final exercise focuses on the fingers and the hands. Some people recommend ball squeezes and rubber band stretching, but I like this exercise because it works through a range of motion and includes the bent back finger position you get when typing or using a mouse. Pull your fingertips back as level with your palm as you can get, like a Kung Fu tiger claw, and then place them on a flat surface. Press some of your weight gently down into the hand for some resistance, and then push up with the fingers, straightening them as much as you can without moving position. Next, slowly lower back down. To make this harder, you can tuck your elbows into your ribs and do this whilst leaning against a wall. The more weight you lean, the harder it becomes. My final tip is to take a break. Try to get up and relax, take a brief walk, or do some stretches for at least 5 minutes of every hour. This will do wonders for your whole body. If you do get a flare-up of pain, try to take as much of a rest as you can from the activity that's causing it. But sometimes something as simple as changing how you're doing things can be enough, such as switching to a vertical mouse or a roller bar. Do all of these things and you should be well on your way to happy wrists. However, believe it or not, but wrist pain can actually be caused by pain in the shoulder. If you still have pain after doing all these exercises, I recommend you go get individually assessed by a physiotherapist. That's it for now. See you in the next one. Hey everyone, Damien the Kung Fit Coach here. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to fix knee pain. Now this is a really common problem. According to NICE, 1 in 5 adults are affected by it. And in fact, a 2011 study showed that since at least 1971, the prevalence of knee pain has been increasing in older adults. Now, you might not know it to look at me, but I have what you might call bad knees. Despite this though, I've rarely experienced knee pain anymore, and that's all down to the tips that I'm going to share with you today. So what do we mean by knee pain then? This could be pain when going upstairs or walking up a hill, dull pain throughout the day, or even just stiffness and aches when getting out of the bed in the morning, or difficulty bending. It could even be your knee giving way on you with a sharp jolt. These are all things which I've experienced before. The femur, your thigh bone, has a groove at its end into which the ridge on the back of your kneecap sits. This, along with the supporting musculature and ligaments, keeps your knees stable. Now, I have a congenital issue where these structures are not as large as they should be, and this increases the mobility of the kneecap and can potentially lead even to dislocation. I went completely unaware and unaffected until a knee injury started a downward spiral that lasted for a number of years. Eventually, I ended up in physiotherapy, and that set me on a journey to healthier knees. The insights I've gained on this journey are what I want to share with you today. Let me be clear though, if you're having lasting knee problems, you should take things easy and consult with your doctor. What I'm going to tell you won't be a fix for everyone's problems, but it will help a significant proportion of you. First, we need to look at the potential causes of knee pain. These fall into 5 main categories: injury, diet, weight, lack of flexibility, and lack of strength. Now, injury is a pretty obvious one. If you injure yourself, you're going to have pain in that area, potentially around that area, but also in other parts of the body due to the effort required in compensation. You don't want to go exercising on something that's injured. You want to give it a chance to heal, and the usual elevation, ice, rest is a good recipe for that. When you first get back into training, you don't want to go too heavy. Take it light, and I also recommend using a support just to give your body that little bit of extra assistance whilst you're getting back into things. I generally go for K-tape as it offers more freedom of movement than a bulky support, and I found it to be more effective than things like neoprene supports. This is especially important when we're talking about fixing knee pain. We want the full range of motion available to us while still having that support available. Diet can also cause joint pain. Certain foods cause an inflammatory response, which, although it might not be enough to cause digestive issues or allergic reaction, can have an effect on how your joints feel. Commonly cited foods include sugar, salt, gluten, saturated fat, and dairy. So if you do experience joint pain, try cutting these out for a few weeks, see if it improves. If it does, reintroduce them one at a time every few days and see if the pain increases again after that reintroduction. That could be an indication that you do have some form of intolerance to one of these foods. Being overweight is another major risk factor for joint pain. Quite simply, if you're carrying around extra weight, your joints are taking more strain and it's more likely to cause them pain. So if you are overweight and you suffer from knee pain, consider trying to drop your weight down. Obviously, being active with painful knees is easier said than done. So stick around to learn how to strengthen up the knees so that you can not only reduce your body weight by being more active, but have that strength as well. So you're doubling up on the benefits for your knee pain. Number 4 is flexibility. You want to regularly stretch your hamstrings, quadriceps, hips, and glutes. A major source of pain and injury can be tightness in the surrounding muscles, so you want to eliminate the possibility of that. I recommend stretching at least 3 times a week, ideally every day, just for a minute each muscle. Now, the next thing, strength. A lot of knee pain is caused by a lack of strength or muscular imbalances. This needn't even be directly in the joint that's having issues. It could be further up the kinetic chain. For example, weak glutes can put extra strain on your knee. Now, if we're going to do exercises to increase the strength in our joints, we need to start slow, assess where we are, and gradually work our way up to the more difficult exercises. Okay, first we want to work on the stabilizing muscles in the knee joint. A great way to do this is to stand on some cushions or pillows with just one leg, enough so that you're a little unstable and can only just feel the floor with your foot. From here, we throw a ball or some rolled up socks against a wall and try and catch it while staying stood on just that one leg. The upper body movement is going to affect your balance, forcing your stabilization muscles to work extra hard. Do this for a few minutes on each leg every day. Another great way to build up these muscles is to walk backwards. We train our legs to move forwards every day, but being able to take the strain in a backwards motion is important too. To do this, just periodically incorporate a few minutes of backwards walking into your day. Once you're comfortable with this, you can even up the intensity and include some backwards running. But obviously, be careful, watch where you're going. We also want to strengthen the larger muscles in the lower body that have an effect on the knee. Now, these first 2 exercises are pretty straightforward. For the clamshells, lie on your side, slide your knees towards your chest, bending your legs to about 90 degrees. Next, open up your hips, keeping your feet touching. Your uppermost knee should reach up into the sky whilst your other stays flat on the floor. Try to engage your hips and glutes to open as far as you can and then close up again. This will strengthen your outer glutes, which can be very important for stabilizing the leg. For the glute raises, lie on your back, place your feet flat on the floor with your legs bent. Squeezing your glutes, lift your hips up towards the sky. Try to get a nice straight body line along your thighs and torso. Keep the hips engaged all the way up, pause, and then drop back down. This will strengthen the main part of your glutes. The next 3 exercises you should be able to do without any pain if you start gently. If you do experience any, ease off a little bit, make the exercise slightly easier, or do fewer repetitions to begin with. Only increase that difficulty when you're ready. Tibialis raises involve you touching the wall with just your upper back. To stand just in front of it, lean back so that your upper back touches, and then keep a nice straight body line as you step your feet a little bit further away. The further your feet are from the wall, the harder the exercise is. So start quite close and then work your way out a little bit more each session as you start to get used to the difficulty. So starting with your feet flat on the floor, you want to lift your toes up towards your shins, using your heels on the ground as the pivot point. This will seem pretty easy at first, but you'll soon feel it, trust me. This exercise will strengthen the front of your lower leg and help to protect your knee as it moves into greater ranges of motion. For the bent leg calf raises, stand facing a wall with your hands placed on it for balance. Or alternatively, you could use a table or a chair that's about the right height. The more you bend your legs, the harder this exercise becomes, so start with a very gentle bend, knees still behind your toes. As you get stronger, you want to start moving the knee further and further until eventually it goes beyond your toes. Once your knees are in position, make sure that your hips are in line with your knees. You want your thighs to be vertical, not sloping backwards. From here, perform slow calf raises, keeping that straight vertical line between your knees and hips. This final exercise of the basic group is a little bit more difficult. The first few you should be able to do without any pain, but this one could potentially cause you some issues. Because of that, I recommend you start with fewer repetitions and work your way up each week if it's feeling comfortable. So you want to stand side onto a wall, place your hand on it for balance, and lift the nearest foot off of the floor. Keep your legs straight, and bear in mind that the higher you lift the foot, the harder the exercise becomes. So to begin with, keep it quite low to the ground. Now, you want to bend your other leg, keeping your body upright until the heel of your lifted foot touches the ground. Then come back up again. Once you've done all of your reps, repeat on the other side. Again, the higher you lift the foot, the lower you have to sink, and therefore the harder this exercise becomes. So I'd recommend you do these 5 exercises in a block together, 3 times a week, and with the number of reps listed here. Eventually, you'll be able to do tibialis raises quite far out from the wall. Your knees will be past your toes in the calf raises, and you'll be getting a full leg bend in those Patrick steps. If you can do all of this without pain, it's time to start incorporating some other exercises to push that knee strength even further. The first thing that I would introduce next is a Patrick step with a resistance band. Loop the band around the back of your knee and anchor it to something solid in front of you. Adjust the tightness so that you're just getting a tiny bit of resistance with your leg bent, and then a bit more as you straighten the leg. This will help further strengthen the muscles around the knee. Now comes the hard work and the real kung fu. If you want to strengthen your legs, your glutes, and the muscles around your knee, then Shubu is the perfect position. It's also pretty demanding, which is why I've left it until last. Now, you don't want to do this too early because you might just exacerbate your knee pain, so make sure you are ready for it. If you're training Kung Fu anyway and you need to be able to do Shubu, I recommend you start high and only work your way down once your knees are strong enough to take it. You might notice that this is incorporating some of the elements that we've already looked at. The knees are going over the toes or even beyond them as we drop down. We shift our weight backwards a little and we lift our torso up, forcing us to engage our glutes to maintain balance. To train your Shubu, we have a few options. Many people will just hold it. And whilst this is a great way to build up your leg strength, to really work on the knees and to make sure that we're working our way down into the lower depths, we need to incorporate some other exercises. I would do these in addition to the ones that you're already doing. First, we have Shubu drops. We start by standing, all of your weight on one leg, and then slowly drop down as low as you can go. Pause at the bottom and then come up. As time goes on, try to get lower and lower. Once you're getting your thigh close to parallel with the floor, or you hit a block and can't get any lower, start to increase the number of reps. As you're doing this, remember that form. Body upright, glutes engaged, shift your weight back a little bit. Next, we have chair Shubu ups. Sit down on the chair, position your feet as if you were in Shubu, one close to the chair and one further away. Lean forward just a little bit, and using the slight momentum that gives you, sit up off of the chair. All of your weight should be going onto one leg, the other leg is just there for balance. Pause, and then sit down slowly. Start with quite a high chair, and then slowly work down to a lower one until you're sitting up into a position where your thigh is nearly parallel to the ground. This will work the most difficult range of motion when your knee is around 90 degrees. Getting into this position from standing can be very difficult, but by reducing the amount of motion required and using a little bit of momentum, we can get into it and work this range sooner than we otherwise might, thereby strengthening our knees to be ready for this position when we can naturally drop down into it. So those are my recommendations for fighting knee pain. To recap, check your diet, watch your weight, improve your flexibility, and most importantly, increase your strength. As I said in the beginning, this isn't necessarily going to fix things for everybody, but a significant proportion of us, those joint pains are caused by a lack of strength, muscular imbalances, strains, and a lack of flexibility. So give these exercises a go, start slowly, and gradually increase the difficulty as you get comfortable with the exercises. If at any point you experience pain, stop, recover for a few days, and then get back to it, but with less intensity. Throughout this, you're probably gonna have some aches because your muscles simply aren't used to the exercises you're putting them through. I need you to try and understand the difference between that muscular ache and pain that's caused by you basically doing yourself a little bit more damage. I don't want you at any point to be exercising through pain, but a little bit of muscular aching, that's perfectly fine. So this is going to take a little while. You need to stick at it, but if you do, you should have really good results out of this. I'd love to hear how you get on, so let me know down in the comments below. Remember to give this a like if you found it useful, and obviously give that subscribe button a good hard Mabu punch. I'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, Dane the Kung Fit Coach here with another edition of 4-Minute Foo, where I try and give you martial arts, general fitness and well-being tips all in just 4 minutes, hopefully. Today we're going to look at glute strength and flexibility. This is really important for explosive power, for moving quickly, for your kicks, but also just generally moving around day to day as well. Often weak glutes can lead to injuries elsewhere in the body, especially the knees, due to overcompensation. So it really is something that's important for everyone. And if you sit down a lot, which, let's be honest, a lot of us do, then your glutes are probably going to be underdeveloped. So this is something that you need to give a go. If you do find this video useful, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And if you want more short form content, you can also follow me on Instagram. Okay, let's start that timer then. First thing we're going to do is some strength exercises, get things nice and warm before we do any stretching. So we're going to lie down. We're going to plant our feet firmly on the floor, legs bent, hands out to the side just for a bit of balance. And we're going to push up with our hips, really drive the hips up towards the ceiling and then squeeze the glutes together. We're going to hold for a second and then drop back down. And we're going to repeat this. We're going to drive up, try and get a nice straight line through the body, squeeze those glutes, hold a second, and drop down. We're going to do 20 reps of this. Next, we're going to do a single-legged version. So we straighten one leg out, we push up with the other leg, drive hips forward, squeeze the glutes, hold at the top, and drop. And we repeat this on the other side, drive up, squeeze, and drop. And we're going to try and do 20 reps with each leg. Once you've done that, you should be nice and warm in your glutes so we can get into a bit of stretching. First thing we're going to do is a straight leg glute stretch, which is going to stretch right up here near where it connects to the hamstring. Feet flat on the floor to begin with. You're going to grab one foot near the toes. You're going to lean forward over that knee, and then you're going to push your heel away from you. So you're going to straighten out the leg, leading with the heel as you go. Keep the body forward as close to your thigh as you can, and as you start to get near straight, you'll feel that stretch right down the bottom of the glute near the top of the hamstring. Keep the body forward, push that heel out. When you're getting that stretch position, you can hold it there. You might also get a little bit in the calf as well, but really make sure you're getting that glute stretch. And then repeat on the other side. Again, lean forward, grab the foot, push the heel away, straighten that leg, keep the body down low towards the leg, and feel that stretch right in the bottom of the glute. Next, we're going to stretch a different part of the glute. For this, we're going to tuck one leg up, as if we're going to sit cross-legged, but the other leg is going to go over the top and to the outside. So my foot on my left leg is to the outside of my right. I'm then going to pull my left knee in with my right arm. As I do so, I want to keep both bum cheeks flat on the floor. So don't lift up like this. Keep both bum cheeks flat on the floor. Pull that knee in and turn. So left leg, pull in with the right arm, turn to the left. If you need a bit more, you can pull in with the other arm as well, but keep your body turned. Don't let that pull you around to face forward, like this. Now this might be too much of a stretch for you. If it is, you don't need to pull in on the knee. You could just sit like this. You could even move that foot a little bit closer towards your knee to get less of a stretch. Depends on how mobile you are. You might be really flexible though. Some people, they get into this position and it still isn't really doing very much for them. That doesn't mean you shouldn't stretch your glutes, because the more flexibility you've got in your muscles, the better in general. So let's find another stretch for you that will work. what we're going to do, we're going to scoot our bum up close to the wall. The leg that we want to stretch, we're going to bend across the other leg. We're going to try and keep our hips close to the floor, and a straight leg, I'm going to slide down the wall, and as I get lower and lower and lower, I'm going to increase the stretch on this bent leg that's across here. So keep the hips close to the floor, slide that foot down, you get a really deep stretch in that glute. If you lift your hips up, you'll release it though, so don't do that. Keep them nice and low. Next, now that we've given them a good stretch, we want to work the strength through that new range of motion. That'll help make sure that we are not only strong in that full range of motion, but help embed that extra flexibility that we've just gained as well, because our body is actually using it and realizes that it's an accessible part of movement that we can get down to. So we're going to do a curtsy squat, but slightly modified. To begin with, we take left foot behind and to the outside of the right foot, and then the left knee comes to the outside of the right leg. You might know this as Xie Kung Fu stance. We sit down and our bum is near our heel. Rather than being upright like this though, as we normally would be, we're going to lean forward so our chest is over our knee, and then we're going to drive up just with this front leg. So the rear leg is really only there for balance, a bit of stability. Most of the work driving up is coming from this front leg. Straighten out that leg fully, keeping the body leant forward, and then come back down again. Now the reason we're leaning is because if we're upright, most of the work is being done by the quad, but if we lean forward, it shifts it over to that glute, so we're working the glute through its full range of motion, really increasing that strength. Then obviously you can repeat on the other side as well. If you can't go all the way down though, don't worry. Get your feet in the same basic position, so behind and to the outside. Bend that knee a little, lean forward. And then start at the top here, and then just bend down as far as you can go. Maybe then lean forward just a little bit more if you can, and then push up from there. Straighten the leg, and down. And you only go as low as you feel you're able to. If you can get all the way down, that's obviously fantastic, but don't feel you have to. So there we have it, some strength exercises, some stretches as well, all of which should really help improve the strength, mobility and general well-being of your glutes. If you found this useful, do hit that like button, do hit subscribe, and as I said earlier, if you want more short form content like this, make sure you follow me on Instagram as well. See you next time. Today we're going to be looking at a stretch that's going to help you with lower back pain and also tight hips. So today we are going to be looking at the couch stretch. No, not like that. This is actually a stretch for the quads and hip flexors along the front of the hips. Alright, so I'm down here on the floor. I've got this rolled up gym mat to just take a little bit of the pressure off of my knee when I'm kneeling down. Anything soft that you have to hand will do. I'm going to show you 3 different stretches, one that focuses on the quad and 2 that focus on the hip flexors, and which one you choose is really just a matter of what you have available to help you with this stretch. So we'll do the hip flexors first. I'm going to take my mat, I'm going to pop it just in front of my stool bars here. You can use anything, chair, sofa, or whatever is about the right height, just so that you can pop your knee on your soft point and your foot up here, just so you've got a little bit of support. And then I'm going to come up onto my foot, so in kind of a lunge position. I want to take my front leg, walk it out a little, and then really lunge forwards. As I do so, I want to push my hips forward as well. So don't tilt your hips back, tilt your hips forward, and lunge over that knee. And already you should feel that stretch along the front of your hip. We can make it a bit more intense though. We can reach up above ourselves, and then we can also lean slightly to the right. So now you should really get quite a deep stretch in the front of the hip. If you're not feeling it quite enough, you can walk that foot just forward a bit more and lunge a bit more, lean a bit more, and you should really feel that nice and deeply in your hip flexor. But if you don't have something the right height to put your foot on, then obviously it becomes a little bit more difficult. So instead we can do a slightly different stretch. The reason I recommend this one first is because it's easier to hold for a long period of time. This second stretch takes a little bit more strength to do because you've got to hold yourself in a raised position. So this, exactly the same kind of idea, but notice I've got one foot on the ground and my knee is not touching the ground. I'm pushing my hips forward, and that is getting my stretch here, but obviously this takes a bit of strength to hold it because I'm holding all of my weight. Again, we can get more of a stretch out of this by reaching up and leaning to the side. And again, the more we drive that knee forward, the more we push the hips forward, the more we lean, the more of a stretch we'll get on that hip flexor. Finally, there is the quad version of this. So for the quad version of this stretch, I recommend something like a wall. It really makes it much easier. You don't need to worry about height or anything like that. I'm going to take my soft object and I'm going to place it right up against the bottom of the wall. I'm going to take my knee and just like before, pop it on top. The difference this time though is my lower leg is straight up vertically against the wall, whereas before we were away, so we were at an angle, now vertically up. As before, I'm going to pop that front foot forward, and now rather than trying to push our hips forward quite so much and lean over to the side, we're going to focus on sitting up nice and tall with our body, but then dropping the hips down towards the ground. And again, you can walk your front foot out, but really think about dropping those hips down towards the ground whilst keeping your body nice and tall. And you should feel a stretch quite deeply along your quad. I'm just resting my hands on my knee for balance, but this is really all there is to it. Obviously, the lower you can get your hips down towards the ground, the more of a stretch you'll get in your quad. You can also turn in slightly, so take my rear shoulder, as it were, towards my front knee, and that can just change the position of the stretch and make it a little bit more intense. It's up to you whether you do that. And again, we can repeat this on the other side. So just pop right knee, again, leg vertical, left foot comes out in front, and I walk that foot forward, push the hips down towards the ground, and get a nice good stretch on the quad. So that's it. That is your couch stretch. Doesn't need to involve a couch, but you can use one as a thing you're popping your foot up against if you want to. Really good stretch for the quads and the hip flexors. And if you make sure that these are nice and loose and mobile, it's really going to prevent lower back pain because those muscles aren't pulling on your hips and stressing out the muscles in the lower back. So hopefully that's been helpful for you. Look out for the video next week where we're going to look at how we stretch our hamstrings and our glutes, again, to solve similar problems that we've had from sitting down so much. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, Damien the Kung Fit Coach here, and today we're going to be talking about ankle mobility. Now, before you shout boring, run away and go watch cat videos, let me tell you why it's so important. Now, lots of studies have shown that increasing your ankle mobility reduces your chance of injury, it improves your balance and stability, and it also improves your athletic performance. Not only that, it will increase your long-term quality of life, it will reduce stiffness, and it will reduce pain. And as if that wasn't enough, it's going to make things like your squats and your lunges much, much better because you'll be able to get down to deeper positions. And even beyond that, it will make you a better martial artist as well. First thing we're going to do is some ankle mobilization. For this, we're going to sit down on the floor, or you can sit in a chair, it doesn't really matter. We're going to cross one leg, pop the other ankle just on top of my thigh, and then I'm going to work my foot through its full range of motion. So don't just flop it around like this. Really pull back, turn round, stretch through, really work it as much as you can. You might want to move it just a little bit further out, just to help make sure you've got the room, your heel doesn't hit up against your thigh too much. And once you've done it a few circles in one direction, go back in the other, and really try and make sure that you're getting the full range of motion in all the different directions to mobilize that joint as much as you possibly can. Next thing we're going to do is stand up. Feet flat on the floor, about hip width apart. We're going to do external and internal tilts. So we're going to push our outer foot down to the floor, lift the inside of the foot up, and then come back down. You're going to do this slowly and methodically. You're not going to kind of explode into it and rush through and risk pulling something. Slowly twist through. Try and go out as far as you can, and then come back in. And we're going to do 10 reps of this, and then rest for a second, then go internal. So for this, exactly the opposite. We pull into the inside of the foot and lift the outside of the foot up. You do want to go careful on this. Don't really pull in and have the knees buckle in as well. The knees will move a little bit, but try and focus it in on the ankles. And the reason I say that is because if your knees aren't used to that position, being bent in like that can be quite painful for them. So we want to avoid that. The next thing we're going to do is stretch the calf, because that muscle is obviously pulling on the ankle. So if it's tight, it can restrict our mobility. So we're going to put the ball of our foot up on an elevated surface. Your heel can either be on the ground or lifted up like mine is. And then you want to try and pull the toes up towards the shin as much as possible by shifting your weight forward. So I'm going to keep this leg straight, sink my weight forward over my foot, and I can even push with my standing leg just to give it a little bit more. If I push my hips back too much, I'm going to start getting a stretch here in my glute. And obviously stretching your glute is a good thing, but right now that's not our focus. So try and be a bit more upright with it and have the stretch really focused in on your calf. You might find that having your foot on the floor actually gives you a bit more leverage to get a bit more stretch in. So try both, see what works for you. For this next stretch, we're going to need a resistance band and an elevated surface. What we're going to do here is pop one foot up on this raised surface, and we're going to take the resistance band and we're going to put it on the ankle and make sure it sits below the bony protrusions. So we've got one on this side, one on the other side. That's your tibia and your fibula. Sit just below there, and then we want it to pull down at least a 45-degree angle. And obviously we want it to be taut. So in order to do that, I'm going to pop my knee on top of here. Need a little bit of resistance. You can do this standing and just put your foot on it, or you can do it kneeling like I am here. Key thing is, it stays below those bony protrusions, it pulls down, and it's a little bit taut. You also want it probably around about this thickness. Too thin and it's going to dig in, too thick and it's going to cover too large of an area. What we're trying to do here is target the talus, which is a little bone in the ankle that slides back as you flex your ankle forwards. And sometimes this doesn't quite move properly, especially if you've had an ankle injury in the past. This area is often impacted, you get some restriction, and it really restricts the amount of mobility you can get in your ankle. So by placing this band, we're essentially forcing it to move in the right way, and then we go through reps. We move forward, and then we come back. We move forward, try and go as far as we can, pause a second, and come back. And you'll probably find you can actually get further doing this than you can without the band, because it is helping that talus move in the right way. So again, we're going to do 20 reps of this. Extend, go into flexion, pause, and extend again. Just keep going through this, and then obviously we'll switch leg. Now that we've mobilised that joint a little, we can do some more deep stretching. So similar kind of position. We're going to have one foot out in front and the other's going to be behind us. We're going to open up to around about 90 degrees with our hips. Knees and toes are going to be in line again. And again, we're going to flex that foot. We're going to take the knee over the toes. Now, what I really want you to think about here is trying to essentially get that knee as far forward as you can. You might get to the point where you're feeling stiffness in the front, in which case you definitely need to do more of those stretches with the band around the ankle. But what we want to try and get to is the point where actually you're feeling the stretch along the back as well, along the Achilles. To increase the intensity, so say you're getting to a certain point, you're feeling it a little bit, but not very much, you can push down slightly on your knee. You can also take your elbows on your knee and lean your entire body weight forward. Still keeping this leg on the ground and this foot on the floor. Don't let this heel come up, but as much of your body weight as you can, lean forward over that, and then you should get a much deeper stretch through the Achilles. Really think about that heel being firmly planted on the floor. And then again, you can do it on the other side as well. Track that knee over the toes, sink a bit of weight into it, and stretch out through that back of the ankle. Now that we've stretched out our ankles a little bit, we're going to do a bit of strengthening work. So first, quite simply, calf raises. We're going to come up, slowly, hold at the top, and then slowly back down. And we're going to do 20 of these with our feet facing forwards. And then we're going to turn our feet out and do another 20. Again, slowly up, slowly down, pausing slightly at the top. And then a final 20 with our toes pointing inwards. Now, if you can't quite make it to that 20 reps, that's fine. But equally, if it's really easy for you, grab some kettlebells or dumbbells or any form of weight, hold them and go up, and it'll make it a little bit more difficult. You can also, if you're feeling up to it, try doing this on a step, so then you can get a greater range of motion because you're coming all the way from this toe up position to that toe down position. Obviously do be careful doing that though, there's a risk of falling backwards, so I'd recommend just gently touching onto the wall, banister, whatever it might be, just to give yourself a little bit of extra balance. If you are going to do a weighted version of that, that means you're potentially going to be lopsided, so something like a weighted vest or some weights in a rucksack can help free up your hands, but again, don't let it pull you backwards, try and make sure that you're staying balanced. Once you've done the calf raises, we're going to do tibialis raises. Now this is exercising the front of the lower leg. For this, you want to lean your back up against the wall and step your feet out. Have a nice straight line in your body, other than your upper back where it's touching the wall. And you're just going to lift your toes up towards your shins, hold it, and down. Lift, hold, and down. Now you can adjust the difficulty of this by how far away your feet are from the wall. If you're really close, it's going to be easier. If you're going to be further out, it's going to be much harder because there's going to be more of your body weight, and also you're going to be going through a greater range of motion. So as you get better at this, you want to try and get further and further away from the wall. Again, we're going to do 20 reps of these. The final exercise we're going to do to train the mobility and the strength in our ankles is just to squat down low. Now this has obvious applications for your weighted squats and your lunges because we're training that squatting motion. When I say squat down low, I really mean all the way down. So we're going to spread the feet a little bit wider than shoulders, just turn the toes out a tiny little bit and squat all the way down. Try and keep your back relatively upright and sink your bum all the way down to the floor. And this is where we want to try and get to. So we're upright, bum down, and we're stable. So we're not leaning all the way forward, we're not falling backwards, we're here, we're stable. Now to begin with, this might actually be quite difficult for you to get to because you don't have that strength and that mobility in the ankles, besides any matters about leg and hip strength. But often it's the ankles that can let us down. So what we do is we get an elevated surface. In this case, I've just got 2 weight plates. You can use books anything just to lift your feet up a little bit. I'm going to put the heels on that elevated surface, and then we're going to squat down. And same again, get as low as we can, but I don't need as much ankle mobility for this. I've got less of an angle in the ankle joint because my heel is elevated, my toes aren't pulled as close to my shin. So I put this on the floor, see how that angle is increased by being on the floor. So this makes it a little bit easier. You can start relatively high with it, a couple of weight plates maybe, and then work your way down until you can get all the way down to that bottom squat position. Again, go for about 20-second hold, keeping it consistent with these 20 reps here, and that will really test you to begin with, but over time it will get easier and easier, at which point try and hold it for longer and longer. Greater mobility and strength in any part of the body is obviously a great thing. It's going to bring a whole host of improvements. But I promised you this was going to make you a better martial artist. So let's look a little bit about how that might be the case. Now I demonstrated with the low squat that the lower you get to the ground, the more ankle mobility you need. So when you think about things like stances, if you're going to get low, you need that ankle mobility. Shubu, for example. If I'm quite high, it's quite a shallow angle between my upper leg and my foot, the ankle joint. As I get lower and lower and lower, see how that angle gets tighter and tighter and tighter until I'm all the way down here. Now obviously I'm not going to use a Shubu all the way down here, this is far too low, but even a perfectly standard Shubu, nice low thigh, we've got that big closing of the distance. I come up, the ankle opens up, greater distance between my shin and my foot. So that increased ankle mobility will get us lower. And you may think, well, stances, who cares? But they are applicable. Even if you don't use them explicitly as stances, if you're leaning back to defend, you want to sink your weight down to get away from an opponent's attack. Equally, when it comes to attacking, having that ankle mobility will increase your range, potentially increase your power. Why? Quite simply, I've got a certain amount of range here with my fist. As I bend my knee, see how much further forward my wrist goes. But watch the ankle. As I bend the knee, the ankle closes up. I need greater and greater mobility to get further and further. It's not always going to be applicable, obviously, but there are going to be occasions where that extra range that you can gain from having greater ankle mobility is the difference between hitting your opponent and not hitting your opponent. Equally, as I drop my knee forward, as I close up the ankle, my weight is sinking, and that means that I can deliver more of my body weight behind my strike. Again, not going to be applicable in all circumstances, but it can sometimes be useful. So we can hit harder, we can hit from further away, and we can retreat more, all because of our increased ankle mobility. Then finally, on top of that, we've obviously got the resistance to injury, which is going to be a big factor in how well we perform. So if you improve your mobility, if you improve your strength, and the two go very much hand in hand, when you improve one, you do improve the other, you will become a better martial artist, you will have better squats, and just generally your quality of life will probably be better for a longer period of time, because you're less likely to have falls, because you're more stable, you're less likely to have aches and pains. Now I've referenced a few studies down below in the description that give you some of the more details on this. If you are interested, you can read them, check them out, see that I'm actually backing all this stuff up with science. I'm not making it up. So if you've enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please like, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Today we're going to be looking at hip mobility. That's really going to help with your kicks and your movement, but also just your general day-to-day function as well. Okay, 4 minutes on the clock then. No promises, but we'll see how I do. First thing, hip circles. We want to keep our head nice and stable, and we want to make as big a range of motion as we can with our hips, circling in one direction and then back in the other. is just going to loosen things up a little bit, get things warm. And you really want to think about pushing out to the side, because that is where people tend to skimp on the motion. They'll push forward, they'll push back, but they'll kind of be lazy around to the sides. So we push out, keep that head stable, get those hips nice and warm. Next, we're going to do some opening and closing the hips. So we're going to stand in a lunge position, shoulders facing forward. Then we're going to open the hips out as far as they'll go. So really turn them open up the shoulders, and then close everything back up again. And we're just going to repeat this. And then go over to the other side and do the same. We want to do about 20 reps each side. Really force them open and then really close up as much as you can. Maybe even to the point where you're bringing the shoulder forward to help you close up. Next, we're going to go into a squat. From here, we're going to move our hips side to side. Feels like quite a weird motion, but it's really going to help open up the hips, the muscles around them, get them a lot more mobile. Again, we're going to do 20 reps to each direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, count all the way up to 40. Then we've got swivel hips. For this, we sit down, feet flat on the floor, legs bent about 90 degrees, about shoulder width apart, and hands just resting on the floor behind you. From here, you're just going to take your knees over to one side, get them as close to the ground as you can without lifting your bum up. Keep your bum flat on the floor and just drop the knees. Probably find that the inside knee particularly is difficult to do, but that's fine. Just go as low as you can, hold it for a couple of seconds, over to the other side, hold it for a couple of seconds. Again, we'll do 20 each side. And if you find that you're not really progressing as you're doing this over an extended period of time, after you've held this, you can then just take the foot and press down a little bit more, just to give this internal rotation especially a bit more work. And then you can go and do your other rep. Right, last set of exercises then, it's going to be hip thrusts. To begin with, we're just going to bend the knees a little bit, back neutral, and we're going to move our hips forward and backwards. We're trying to try and get as much range of motion as we can. So really push them back, and then really push them forward. And again, we're going to do 20 reps of this. Next, you can do it leaning backwards slightly, bend the knees even more so you stay balanced, and again, go back as far as you can and forward as you can. And repeat. And then last exercise, same hip thrust but leaning forward this time, and you'll probably find this one feels a little bit kind of weird, a little bit shaky when you do it because your body's not used to using this motion in this position, but that really shows that you do need to improve the mobility in this direction. It's going to be a really useful exercise for you. So same again, lean forward, push forward as far as you can, push back as far as you can, and repeat. Again, 20 reps. Right, there you go, a bunch of hip mobility exercises for you. Hopefully I kept that under 4 minutes. We'll see when I get to editing this. Again, if you find it useful, do hit subscribe, do hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next one with some more helpful Kung Fu and general fitness tips. Hey everyone, Dane the Kung Fit Coach here. Today in this episode of 4 Minute Fu, we are going to be looking at thoracic spine mobility. You could also look at it as just general torso mobility. Now this is going to help with power delivery in your strikes. It's going to reduce stiffness, reduce neck pain, help if you've got that forward neck posture, and some studies have shown that it's even going to help unlock the potential of your shoulders, especially with those overhead pressing motions. If you spend more than 7 hours a day sitting down and do less than 2.5 hours of exercise each week, then you are probably going to be one of those people that is suffering from limited thoracic spine mobility. So if that does sound like you, then this is going to be really helpful for you. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and let's get into this, see how well we do keeping under that 4 minutes. Alright then, let's start that 4-minute timer. First thing we're going to do is just torso rolls. We're going to spread the feet, bend the knees a little, and we're just going to roll the torso in nice big circles. So really lean back, really lean to the sides, lean forward, really get it going as much as you can. Do about 20 to one side and then 20 back in the other direction as well. Next thing we're going to do is twisting the torso. So we're going to try and keep our spine roughly where it is, and we're twisting the torso around it. Start off nice and small, and then gradually get bigger and bigger, and you can go faster and faster. But again, try and keep that spine relatively central. Don't wave side to side, don't kind of bob forward and back. Spine central, body moves around it. That's going to really help loosen things up, get greater control, greater mobility through your torso. Next thing we're going to do is something to help open us up a little bit. So we're going to stand, feet a little bit bent, hips neutral, and we're going to open our arms out wide and push our chest forward. Really think about stretching out the chest, and then we're going to close up. So arms come in front of us. We think about pushing our shoulder blades as far back as we can. And we repeat, come forward, open out, and come back, closing up. Again, we can do about 20 reps of that. Then we're going to do it looking down. So bend the legs, lean forward a little bit, and we're going to open out and close back down. And open out, and you can also lift the head up a little bit as well. And close back down, bring the head down. Really push down towards the floor, and then open up. And back down. Okay, and then finally we can do this sat down. Basically the same principle, you're just going to sit on the chair and do the same thing, but it's going to help isolate your upper back, take your lower back out of it a little. Next, we're going to get down onto the floor. I'm going to have my trusty foam roller here, put it down behind me, roughly where I think my upper back is going to be. Lie back, adjust the position, make sure it's about right. Then what I want you to do is plant your feet firmly on the floor, legs about 90 degrees, and then think about pushing your hips forward and up. Okay, and that's going to push your lower back into the floor, and make sure that when we start bending backwards, you're not bending from the lower back, you're actually bending and accessing the mobility of the upper back. So keep those hips pushed forward, and then lean backwards, and then you can extend your arms up above, just to give you a bit more weight, and just relax into this position. You might need to adjust the position of the foam roller slightly. You might want to move it up slightly. You might want to move it down slightly, but all the while keep those hips pushed up towards the ceiling to isolate out the upper back. Now, having done that in a few different positions in your upper back, get rid of your foam roller, and we're just going to lie down flat on the floor. And from here, what I want you to do is bring one leg up to about, 45 degrees, and then the other one up to about 90 degrees. So your foot will be near your knee. Then, bottom arm, whichever arm that happens to be, just take it out to the side, and take the other arm over on top of it. So you're kind of lying on your side, right knee a little bit elevated at this point. If you're particularly unmobile, you might want to put something under it, like a cushion or a box, so that that is kind of your low point. But if you're a bit more mobile, a bit more flexible, you can push that knee down towards the floor. Then from this position, we're going to take our arm, going to bring it up over our head and around behind us. So you should now feel a stretch along your back. The more you push this knee down towards the ground, while still keeping this open chest position, the more of a stretch you'll get, which is why you might, if you're not as mobile, want a box. So you've still got something to push down towards, but you're not going beyond your current limits. And eventually, you'll be able to get near to the floor as you do this. So that stretch is really going to help loosen things up a little bit. But as I said, this is mainly about mobility rather than about flexibility, because we want to be able to move, we want to be able to deliver power. So that's why we're starting with those movement drills. Right, that's it then. 4 minutes, hopefully done. If you found this useful, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit like, and if you want more short form content, make sure you follow me on Instagram as well. See you next time. Today we're going to be looking at some more stretches for our hips and legs to try and relieve some of that tightness that you've probably developed from sitting down so much. Today we're going to go to the back of the body and we're going to look at glutes, hamstrings and calves. All right then, so there are lots of different stretches we can do for our posterior chain, and today I'm going to focus on some ones that kind of run up the middle, if you will. It's an area that tends to really get tight if we sit down a lot, and if we want to get full range flexibility for things like high kicks, we're stretching out that entire chain at once. These stretches will really help with that. So the first thing we're going to do is just a basic hamstring stretch, and that's going to focus on the lower part of the hamstring. It's what I would recommend as your default kind of hamstring stretch most of the time, but you do want to make sure you get a few little things right, otherwise you're not going to be getting the most out of this. So I'm going to put my right leg out in front, and I'm going to keep it straight. If you do have difficulty keeping it straight, you can just apply some gentle pressure just above the knee, just help keep it in the right position. And then I'm going to bend my other leg slightly just to allow me to get down a little. Now from here I'm going to push my hips back and I'm going to hinge at the waist. And notice my body is staying neutral as I go down. So this is the mistake that a lot of people make. They think, I'm trying to get my head as low as possible, so they arch their body forwards and think about getting their forehead down to their toes. But that just relieves some of that stretch on the hamstrings, so we don't want to do that. So you push the hips back, we bend at the hips, and we keep our back neutral, we bend forwards, and we think about our chin heading towards our toes instead. Again, we try and keep that leg straight, and we just get as low as we can and feel a stretch along that hamstring. Now, from here, you want to relax down into the stretch more on your out breaths. So you breathe in, breathe out, relax, and sink a little bit lower. And as you find the stretch gets easier and easier, try and sink a bit lower and lower and lower. And that's really all there is to this stretch. Now, as I say, I find this works the bottom of the hamstring a little bit more, and less so the top of the hamstring. So the next stretch we're going to do is going to focus on that real top area of the hamstring to make sure that that doesn't get missed. For that top hamstring area, we're going to crouch down into a kind of lunge type position, one leg behind, one leg in front. And then I'm just going to extend that front foot out a little bit, so I'm really spreading my hips. I'm going to take my front arm, and I'm going to take it underneath my front leg, and then out to the outside. So my right hand is outside my right foot. And then left hand's just going to offer a little bit of extra support, and I lean forward. And I lean forward as much as I possibly can. And if I need to, I can also scoot that left knee back a little bit. And the more I lean forward, the more of a stretch I'll get. And as I say, you should really feel this up towards the top of the hamstring, which doesn't often get stretched quite so much in some of the hamstring stretches that people usually do. And then of course we can do this on the other side as well. For this next stretch, we're going to look at stretching out kind of the lower middle part of the glute, which again is an area that doesn't get stretched a huge amount, but for those really extended leg positions is really important to make sure you have the flexibility there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab myself, just a weight, but you can have any kind of elevated surface. I'm going to pop it on the floor. And I'm going to put both feet this time elevated up onto it. So just balls my feet up onto the weight, and then from here I'm going to bend forward. But rather than straightening out the legs, because that's going to again put the pressure of the stretch onto the hamstrings, I'm going to bend them just a little bit, and I'm going to poke my bum backwards, and then I'm going to lean forwards. Now you might need to adjust the position slightly as you get down here, so I'm just going to push my bum a little bit further back, and now I'm feeling the stretch just here, so kind of where the hamstring meets the glute. And it's quite a difficult area to stretch, but a really important one too. So I can lean forward a little bit more, I can push my bum back a little bit more. You'll probably also get a little bit in the upper calf and the lower hamstring, but primarily you'll be stretching here. As I say, you probably want to play around with this one a little bit, find the position that works best for you, and once you get it, you'll know it and you'll be able to get into it more easily. But it's an area that isn't stretched particularly well with a lot of the more traditional, shall we say, glute stretches, so make sure you incorporate this one. For a final stretch then, we are going to use our elevated surface again, and this is actually going to stretch that entire posterior chain all at once, including the calf, which we've not really done much of before. So this time it's just going to be a single leg elevated, so ball of the foot on our surface, and we're going to keep this leg straight, and it's going to be basically a combination of the first and the third stretch that we did. So from here, I'm going to bend my left leg just a little bit, and then I'm going to lean forward. Again, I'm pushing my hips back, I'm keeping my back neutral, and I lean forward. As I lean, the more I lean, I'll get more of a stretch on my calf, I'll get a stretch in my hamstring, and I'll also get a bit of a stretch up towards that lower glute area as well. And this really emulates that stretched out position of the entire leg. The more I drop down, remembering to keep my back neutral, the more of a stretch I'll get. Now the good thing about this stretch is, as well as practicing that fully stretched out elongated position, it really targets your tightest area. So say your calves are your tightest area, you'll probably get more of a stretch in your calf than the other parts. If your hamstring is the tightest area, you'll get more of a stretch there. So it helps you identify what's the limiting factor on your posterior chain flexibility, and obviously helps you improve the flexibility in that, whilst also working on some of the other areas as well. So it's a really good one to do, but I would generally advise you do it at the end. Make sure you've stretched each thing individually first. Obviously you can stretch the calf on its own as well, and I've shown you how to do that in the Poo video a few weeks ago, so make sure you check that one out as well. So that's it, we've got our posterior chain stretches. Again, that's really going to help relieve some of that hip tightness, and also some of that lower back pain you might get from sitting down all day. Remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Well, that's your lot. If you made it all the way through, well done, and thank you. Let me know in the comments which of these exercises you're going to try, and once again, if you would like a more personalised approach to building yourself up to being Kung Fit, then please do get in touch, either using the details in the description below or by scanning this QR code here. For now, that's all for me. I'll see you soon.